Hey guys, thank you for checking back for part 2 of my Margaret River Fantasy Surfer Picks. If you've not seen part 1, I'll pop a link in the description below. Part 1 goes through the breaks that can be used at Margaret River for competition to help you decide what type of surfer you want, and I also go through my top 8 picks for Margaret River. That is with no salary cap and no categories, so chances are you're not going to be able to pick all 8 within your salary cap or sections, but they give you some guidance on who I think are the best surfers at Margaret River. I was hoping before I did part 2 that I'd have Swell Forecast. We know what current form is from the way people surfed at Bells, and also details of all the wildcards. Unfortunately, although we have Swell Forecast now and people's form at Bells, we don't have a full rundown on all the wildcards yet. If you want to see my final team once the wildcards have been announced, please follow me on either Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, and I'll be putting up a screenshot on each of them of my final team. I probably won't have enough time to get the video up before the comp starts. At the moment the swell's looking quite promising for the start of the window, so there's a good chance the comp will run early, which might not give me much time to actually get a final video up there after the wildcards are announced. I do want to start as well by saying that in my previous video, in the rundown of what the break was like, I discussed Margaret River and the main break, Surfer's Point, as being a left-hand wave. That's because I based my facts largely on the surf guides. The surf guides do describe the wave as mainly a left-hander. Somebody picked up on it in one of the comments, and I have to say that it is worth mentioning that although the wave is classed as a left-hander traditionally, it's seen by a lot of surfers now as a bit of a shorter, steeper wave and quite a quick way to get good points in competition. So particularly in the event with a lot of regular footers going that way, it's certainly not something where the goofy footers have a massive advantage over the regulars anymore. So just to clarify, although the wave is traditionally a left-hand break, it is now seen as more of a left and a right-hand break. So don't be put off too much by going regular or goofy. That decision is probably going to be more swayed by how the goofies you think will surf at the box or at North Point. So let's start by looking at the swell forecast. The swell we're likely to see the surfers in and when the comp's likely to run. I'd like to, as I did last time, thank Magic Seaweed for giving me permission to use their charts in the videos that I'm doing, and recommend that you check their website out for any forecasting needs. So if we start by looking at the swell for the period of the Margaret's contest, you want to be looking down, right down here at the southwestern tip of Australia. For the Margaret's contest sites. It really does live up to its reputation as a consistent place to surf. If we just have a quick flick through the swell, you can see it really doesn't drop below anything which isn't surfable for the whole window. I'll go back in a second and show you when I think the contest is likely to run, but you can see already really clearly there's a nice solid swell coming towards the end of the window. So going back, I reckon we have to bear in mind as well that there's the women's and the men's running, so there's going to be a lot of heats to get through. My view is that there's a pulse of swell here over the first weekend of the contest. The WSL obviously like to run the contest over the weekends as well, owing to the fact that the viewer numbers are going to be higher. It does die off slightly then, before right at the end of the swell window we get this massive swell, which looks quite promising. As we all know, we're a long way from this at the moment, and the further away we start looking, the more we have to cross our fingers, but hopefully that looks like such a strong pulse of swell that it'll come, and we'll get some big waves to surf in. Having a quick look at the wind, so we are offshore, cross shore in that first few days, fairly strong cross shore, offshores. So over that weekend when there's that first pulse of swell, it is looking like we're going to have favourable-ish winds at the very worst cross shore, at the best offshore, quite light at times. And again, let's get further into the swell window for that second batch of swell. Again, the further we go, bearing in mind the more unreliable it's likely to be. So we're looking at slightly stronger cross shores. I'm sure there'll be some days in there when they can pick out some good days though. So yeah, it's looking like some pretty good swell, pretty big swell. Definitely bear that in mind when factoring in your team. So let's have a look at my teams. This is my Surfing Mag team. As you'll see, most of them are from the last video, my top riders. There's a few others in there and I explain them. Kelly Slater, in my last video I mentioned why he's in there. John, same. Geordie, he wasn't one that I mentioned in my last video, but he's someone who I think looked like he's found his form at Bells now. He's always had a slow start at Queensland on the Gold Coast, and I think his performance at Bells showed that he's finally clicking. He really suits the North Point wave and the Surfers Point wave. Margaret River. Not holding too much hope out for him if it runs at the box, but in previous years it's flicked between the two, so I'm kind of hoping that he misses those heats or gets easy draws. Tajborough, mentioned it in my last video, local there. Absolutely amazing wave knowledge. Joshka is another that was in my initial video, and I think you'd be a fool not to have him in your team. Adriano De Souza, one mentioned in my previous video. He has great results at Margaret River, even though it's not necessarily the type of wave I'd consider him to be great in. Not doing amazing so far this year, but then a lot of the top guys aren't. I expect a lot of them to start clicking in now we're into some bigger swell, and I do understand from an article I read on, I believe it was Tracks or Stab, that they've been out there surfing. He got there nice and early, and he's actually been out there getting used to the wave, as he does at every break. Matt Wilkinson, bit of a surprise pick maybe. I don't necessarily expect him to do that well at Margaret River. I kind of got him at the start of the year for 5.5. I don't want to let him go now. Once Margaret's out of the way, even if he gets to 25th place, we're going to be into Brazil. I'd love to have him in my team going to Brazil, even if it's not quite for that price. It'll still be a great price, and he's probably one I'm going to keep him for most of the year. Jack Robinson is the only wildcard we've had announced so far, and I think anybody who knows him, he's a local to West Oz, lives super close to all the breaks that are going to be used for the contest, and proved himself, I think, when he was a wildcard at Pipe last year. He's not one to be rattled in competition situations, so yeah, definitely pick from my team. Looking at my fantasy surfer on the World Surf League, I've gone Jordy Smith, echoes the comments in my previous team. Adriano De Souza again in my previous team too, so I've already explained that, as is Kersey, Slater and John Florence. Nat Young isn't in my previous team. I don't think he was at one point, but I took him out. I think replaced him with Adriano De Souza. I had so much money left, and I think on balance he's probably more likely to do good, although Nat has had great results at Margaret River before, and again he's not necessarily one of the guys I'd expect to do well there. TSC on the World Surf League I really struggled with, to be honest. I went for Dusty Payne and Keanu Singh in the end. Of all the surfers in that category, they to me looked like they'd be the ones who'd handle the bigger surf better, and probably more used to it coming from Hawaii with the big open water, really strong heavy waves. So they're my picks. I'd love to know what you guys have chose, so please let me know in the comments below what you think of my picks and who you've gone for. We also have a Surf Connoisseur club on both of the fantasy surfers, so please go find the club, join it. As I say, as more wildcards are announced, my team may change, but Jack Robinson was the one I was really hoping to get in there, so it'll depend who the other guys are. Do check back, and if anything changes I'll let you know on any of the other social media sites. As I say, all the links for those are below. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, please press subscribe, because I'll be doing them before each and every event to give you the lowdown on which teams to choose. As I say, if you've not seen part 1 yet, please check my other videos out. I will link it below as well. That gives you a rundown on the break and my top 8 surfers for the event. Thanks guys, cheers for watching.